Hey, what's going on? I'm Jeremy Branch, here to discuss Alien Earth. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. This is a series I've been kind of counting down the days until it was released, and I was finally able to catch it last night. Despite the fact that I was counting down the days for its release, the day that it was released totally slipped past me. I had a friend reach out yesterday and say, "Hey, what do you think about Alien Earth?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to get back with you." So I waited for my wife Victoria to get home, and we checked out the first two episodes last night. And I got a lot of thoughts. I also have a lot of notes and a lot of open tabs. So bear with me as I kind of work my way through all of this stuff. So I kind of want to share my history and my experience with the Alien franchise, as this is one that I have a close connection with. You know, there's like Star Wars people out there, or maybe you're into Batman or like whatever the thing is. I'm a big Jaws guy. I'm a big Alien guy. And there is, I think, a pretty specific reason why. Hey, what's up, Mark McKeever? Yeah, definitely stop by and check it back out. Always a pleasure to hear from you, man. So yeah, Alien Earth. This is Noah Hawley's series. Noah Hawley, if you're not familiar, he is the creator and showrunner of Legion, and he didn't create Fargo. I guess he didn't create Legion either, but he was the showrunner of the television version of Fargo, which is just chef's kiss. Some of the best television out there. Just undebatably one of the best showrunners I've ever seen. And when I saw that he was going to be involved in the series, I was like, awesome, this is going to be really good. So I grew up kind of into illustrating and drawing and stuff like that when I was a young kid. This is going to be relevant. Probably not really relevant to the show, but let me just share my love of the Alien franchise with you. And when I was in 8th grade, I had taken, art classes, but in 8th grade, we got put into an advanced art class. My teacher's name was Deborah Chinnery. She was so cool. And she's like one of those teachers that gives you faith in the education system, She really paid special attention to people that she thought, deserved it and wanted to build up people who were artistic in nature in a very rural place where that wasn't emphasized in the same way as, sports or other things. So anyways, I was in this advanced art class, and she showed us 2 movies over the course of that year. And each one of them are movies that, as even in like till today, I'm just a huge fan of. And the movies are Jaws, and you can see a xenomorph back there in that drawing my friend Andrea got me, but Alien. And I remember, we had to get consent forms signed for each of them. Jaws was only rated PG, so like, despite the fact that there's some blood and gore in it, it wasn't the same kind of thing as being in an 8th grade art class and watching Alien with the classroom. There's some pretty graphic stuff in Alien, but the purpose of this class and watching movies was almost like an art appreciation exercise. So the first time I ever watched a movie critically and through that lens was in 8th grade, and it's thanks to her and the way she was kind of breaking down, production design and the shot composition, and it caused me to look at movies in another way, and that's something that I carried with me through my whole life. Don't get me wrong, like I loved movies pre 8th grade advanced art class, but there was something about seeing them as an art form that was like transformative for me. So I always think back to Alien as being one of my favorite movies, and same with Jaws, one of my favorite movies, because those are 2 examples of the first time that I ever like saw a movie and appreciated it for all of the work and the craftsmanship that goes into it. So that's one part of the Alien fandom. And the first movie is just so incredible, right? I think we can all agree that it's a really, really interesting world that Ridley Scott created, and the Nostromo and the way that the future tech looked through that very specific lens is incredibly iconic, and in fact carries over into this new series. That was important to Noah Hawley, that he harkened back to the original Alien film. So not only did I have that, kind of pivotal moment in my life, when I was 10 years old, I remember my mother taking us to this place called Mariner Mall here in Pensacola. It no longer exists. And I'm sure you have like memories from when you were young, and they're hard to discern, like what of it was like a dream and what of it actually happened. There was this place called the Puppet Factory, and I couldn't find anything about it for years. It was a strange place. I mean, it was a store in the mall, but when you went in there, there was like all of these bespoke ventriloquists and marionettes, and they had like created a xenomorph that was in the mall. It was the weirdest thing, because I remember looking at its ribs and realizing that they were made out of like rope. So it wasn't like a replica, but it was somebody had crafted this xenomorph. It looked awesome. Haven't been able to find any pictures of it. Almost can't even, pinpoint for sure that that is something that actually happened. But what I definitely remember happening is there was a dollar movie theater that also happened to be at Mariner Mall, and they were playing Alien 3. At 10 years old, I went and saw Alien 3 with my mom and my brother. It was the first time I'd ever seen an R-rated movie in the movie theater. I'd seen R-rated movies before that, but that was the first one I saw in the theater. So that's just like another reason why I love Alien. Hey, what's up, Tyler and Curtis? How y'all doing? The Thing was the one that got you into admiring and thinking about the work that goes into making movies. Another great film that I have even heard Carpenter say is heavily influenced by Alien. So huge fan of everything Carpenter does. Well, a lot of what Carpenter does. He's one of my favorite musicians, ironically. So, throughout the years, there's been highs and lows in the Alien franchise, but I love the first three movies. I remember the third one, it was just like so bleak and grimy compared to the previous two films. It was distinct, and I know Fincher like struggled with making it, but I feel like it was a really, gory and grimy take on the original. It was like way more industrial. And the fact that it was on a prison planet, and then you get the freaking fantastic Charles Dance in it. You get iconic Sigourney Weaver as Ripley with the shaved head. There's a lot of really good stuff in there. The fact that the xenomorph runs around on all fours because it was like birthed of a dog or a cow, depending on which version of the film you watch. So I always really liked those. I remember when Alien Resurrection came out, being really put off by it. And still to this day, that's like the one out of the main Alien franchise that I just can't really rock with. Don't get me wrong, there's that shot where the xenomorphs are swimming underwater. It's really cool, man. That kind of stuff I'm a sucker for. I really liked that, but just I wasn't a fan. It's interesting the way that a lot of aspects of that came back around in Romulus, only they were handled better. But so I wasn't really a big fan of Alien Resurrection. That said, when Prometheus came out, well, I guess I got to back up because the AVP things happened. It was kind of like Freddy versus Jason, where you're like, oh man, we've been like fan casting this. There's been the comics and the video games and all of these, supplemental material about the aliens and the predators crossing over. It seems like a perfect fit. Predator 2 featured a xenomorph head on the Yacha ship. So of course, every kid wanted to see them go to battle, but not in a PG-13 Paul W.S. Anderson movie. Unfortunately, they just didn't quite hit the mark with that one. I think aesthetically, it's got some really cool stuff in it. I like the wolf predator suit is pretty cool. The queen at the end is phenomenal looking, but the movie didn't work for me, and then even less so with Requiem. So anyways, wipe the slate of the AVP movies, though I do think we've got some really interesting things on the horizon. But when Prometheus came out, this was like right at that era where Damon Lindelof was kind of the master of the mystery box, right? He was involved with Lost and a lot of J.J. Abrams projects, and I was a fan, and I liked how the trailers were ambiguous and vague, and there was a lot of discussion about whether or not this was going to be directly connected to the Alien mythos. Is it a prequel? Is it a sequel? We don't know. We gotta check it out. And despite some clear issues in that movie, I love the philosophical aspects of it. I love that Ridley Scott tried to tie theology and science together and kind of pulled from chariots of the gods and a lot of like that ancient alien stuff that was popular on television a little bit afterwards, I think. I thought it was cool. I thought it was pretty smart. I thought the first half of it, like the setup to all of the alien shenanigans going on, was brilliantly put together. It's an awesome looking movie, though aesthetically it feels very far removed from, in particular, Ridley Scott's vision for what the future would look like. So there's that. But I thought it was cool. It was fascinating. And then Alien Covenant came out, and I was not very high on that one. I didn't really like what they did with the franchise. However, I've softened on it over time. Years removed from it, I appreciate a lot of what it did. I think David is just one of the most interesting characters in alien lore, right? Like, Michael Fassbender is incredible, so to see him kind of develop as this central character within the franchise was interesting. So I really like David as a character. A lot of the other characters in Covenant, not so much. Wait, what? There was David, and then there was what was his twin's name? The other replicant that was of the same body design or whatever. Oh hell, I'm not gonna be able to think of it now. Is it Michael? No, that's Michael Fassbender. I don't know. Leave it in the chat or in the comment section if you know what the name of the other synthetic in Alien Covenant was. But there's that really funny memed to death bit where he's like, I'll do the fingering if you do the blowing, or something real homoerotic, where he was like acting against himself. But anyways, Michael Fassbender as David, incredible performance. Really like that guy. When Alien Romulus was coming out, I was a little bit like, oh great, Disney's got Alien now. What are we gonna do here? This could be bad. What are we gonna do? And then when I saw it, there's a lot of member berries, for better or worse. They do the one particular thing with Ash that I was not keen on. Don't know why they felt the need to do that. Did not appreciate it. Thought it was borderline offensive, even though I know that the estate was okay with with digging up the corpse and desecrating the remains of Ian Holm. Yeah. But whatever, whatever. That's my ideological thing. I thought the movie was decent. I really didn't think that the android needed to say, "Get away from her, you bitch," at the end of it. That was really cheesy, and it kind of retconned or did correctly what Alien Resurrection did poorly in the very last scene. That thing is so creepy looking. The engineer Xeno hybrid, ugh, is nasty looking thing. But yeah, so I think overall Alien Romulus was pretty good. I like Fede Alvarez a lot, and I think there was some good gore, some good practical effects. I love that we returned to the aesthetics of the original film. Walter, absolutely, Curtis. Thank you. That's exactly right. Had a great couple characters in it. Yeah. Walter, that's right. So, yeah, I liked Romulus, but I didn't love Romulus. It did a couple of like the Disney things that I don't like about it. One of those, which we're going to come back to later on in this stream. I'm going to be doing this for a little bit because, like I said, I got a lot of notes, and I've already gone off the rails. But yeah, Romulus was okay. But when I saw that Noah Hawley was doing Alien Earth and that it was going to be an FX produced show, and being a huge fan of Legion and a huge fan of Fargo, I'm like, all right, it's in good hands. This guy understands science fiction. I want to get heady with it, and I also want to see the xenomorphs on Earth. This is novel. This is something we haven't seen in any of the films, I'm sure there's some comic or novelization or something where they have shown up on Earth, but to me, this was a first. So I sat down, I watched the first 2 episodes, and I am going to be talking about it as if you've seen it. I don't know that there's anything so revelatory in the first 2 episodes that having heard this is going to mess up your experience. Bath time, is this an interactive thing? I guess that answers your question. Yeah, absolutely. If you have any thoughts or comments, questions, absolutely let me know, and I'll get to those. There's just a couple of us all kind of hanging out talking movies, so feel free to use the chat. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Also, another thing, before I get into this show, I've been playing Alien Isolation. Like, yeah, dude, I know the game's like 15 years old now. I am a lapsed gamer that finally came back and started playing video games again recently. Thanks to Holden. Holden, actually, my friend Holden, for those of you that don't know, he was like, hey, do you want an Xbox One? And I was like, nah, man, I'm never going to play that thing. And he's like, well, like, it's just collecting dust in my house if you want it. And I was like, all right, sure. You want to give it to me? Awesome. And I appreciated it. But he brought it over and it's sat here for like 6 months collecting dust. And then I was like, oh, dude, you can play GTA 5 and you can play Tony Hawk 1 and 2. And you can play this Alien Isolation, this horror survival game that people have been talking about for years. Why don't you get on that? So I got those games. Been playing the hell out of all of them. But I play Alien Isolation alone at night after my wife's went to bed and I'm just chilling, and it is stressful. It is seriously freaking stressful, dude. It's so weird to me opening Disney Plus, which used to be all Disney, and now seeing stuff like Alien Earth top of front page. Yeah, absolutely. I remember when they first started integrating Hulu onto the homepage and being like, oh, this is a different thing now, and all the better for it. I think if I heard correctly, and I might be wrong about this, I don't even know why I'm saying it, I think they're doing away with Hulu except for within the Disney Plus package. I don't know. That is something I heard. Bath Time. I'm an enormous fan of the first and second films, and I've literally just finished the second episode now. I feel the themes that worked in the first two are lost in the wind now. Interesting. I have a little bit different feelings about it. No, I do not watch Star Trek, Tyler. Not that I'm not a fan of it. I watched a little bit of TNG, growing up on television, but it was never my thing. Oh, I saw the Kelvin universe stuff, which I know Star Trek fans don't even consider to be real Star Trek, or some of them anyways, but not super familiar with it. So yeah, playing Alien Isolation, saw that Noah Hawley was coming out with Alien Earth. It's bringing the xenomorphs to Earth. I'm super hype about it. The series is set in the year 2120, which means it takes place 2 years before the events of Ridley Scott's film, which took place in 2122. A little math there that I did for the notes. Isolation did the Alien franchise total justice. The alien AI in the game is a proper menace to deal with. You are not kidding. And like even the what are they, Friendly Joes or Average Joe synths that are running around? They're freaking creepy, and I'll be like running from them, which I know you shouldn't do. I gotta like tone it down. I'm used to like hack and slashes and running guns, so like the idea of like crouching around and hiding, this is like a new concept to me. So I'll be running from the Average Joes, and the freaking xenomorph will just drop down from the rafters in front of me. I'm like, ah, scary. I've been more scared playing Alien Isolation than I am usually ever scared in a movie. So yeah, couldn't agree more. The alien AI is crazy in that game. Prometheus took place in 2089 through 2093. Oh, 2089 and 20. Yeah, right. Because the Wayland, what's his name, timeline kind of jumps along through like the span of his life. Alien Covenant 2104. Alien Earth 2120. Alien 2122. Alien Romulus 2142. Aliens 2179. That's a pretty big jump. And then Alien 3 also 2179 because it takes place right after the events of Aliens. Then we got Alien Resurrection, which goes way into the future to the year 2381. Bath Time. I see the first one as a clear male pregnancy horror. Even the AI is called Mother. The second one, obviously a bit Vietnam War, but mainly about motherhood and rediscovering Ripley's humanity. I think those are very astute observations, and I couldn't agree more. I do feel like the giving birth body horror aspects are still intact in this new one. But noted, I definitely see where you're coming from. I think instead of the Vietnam War allusions, which wouldn't be quite as timely now as they were, so close to the events taking place in the movie, I think, was 86, and the end of the Vietnam War was like 78, something like that, give or take a couple years. But there are allusions to what I would think of as like 9/11, and in particular in episode 2. So like I feel like they've kind of traded themes, and this one is definitely more about like a corporate dystopia and the way that corporations, are running the world currently, and the way that could snowball into something even more dystopian as time goes along. And then I also think that it's about what it means to be human, which is a very Blade Runner thing, which my friend Tyler Adams made me this awesome Be Terrible 2049 poster that I still have up on my wall, because Blade Runner is another of my favorite franchises, and I'm just such a huge fan of that exploration of what it means to be human. And it's weird because, like, on one hand, I don't love AI, but I also find myself being like empathetic towards artificial intelligence in movies. Like, I think I have a different outlook on synthetics than other takes that I've heard regarding, that particular thing and what it means to have a soul, etc. And we will talk about that stuff. Episode 1 is called Neverland. It opens up with some text explaining these 3 different creations by corporations that are kind of the arms race towards eternal life, immortality. So you've got the cyborgs, the synthetics, and new to this franchise are the hybrids. And this series really focuses heavily on the hybrids because it's this new and interesting concept that is very similar to what we got in Blade Runner, though these are even different from that, because basically, like, very Black Mirror-esque, you can take the memories from a human and then embed them into a fully synthetic humanoid creation, meld the two together, and what you have is essentially a more human version of an android or a synthetic. There's 5 powerful corporations that rule the planet. That's Weyland-Yutani, Prodigy. Those are the main 2 that we're familiar with at this point in the series. There's also Lynch, Dynamic, and Threshold. Shout out to David Lynch. Not sure if that's a coincidence, but RIP to one of the real ones. One of my favorite directors. The primary players so far are Weyland-Yutani and Prodigy, as I mentioned. Prodigy is led by the eccentric billionaire Boy Cavalier, which I think is funny on multiple levels. There's a lot of like allusions to Peter Pan, which, like, hey, I mean, if you got the licensing, why not just show Peter Pan in the series, which is fine, whatever, no big complaints about it. I think thematically it makes a lot of sense. But for those of you that don't know, Cavalier, spelled differently, is an adjective used to describe people that basically means they're truculent or uncooperative, a resentful or antagonistic manner. And if you think about his conversation with Essie Davis's character in episode 2, he's such a smug prick. You know a person's smug when they eat an apple, but also, like, the apple represents, like the forbidden fruit or the tree of knowledge. So it harkens to, like, when Eve ended up, being tempted by the devil in the garden and eating the apple of knowledge. It kind of like caused you'd probably know more about the Bible than I do, but being that Boy Cavalier is kind of playing God, and his ultimate desire is to have intellectual conversations with people, I felt that was kind of telling. Let's see. Artificial life is a nice through line in the franchise, no doubt. Yeah, absolutely. And then Yutani will kill everyone by the end of the season. Certainly that cliched boy wonder guy. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked to see that. So the story itself opens up on the USCSS Maginot. I don't know how to pronounce it. I messed up by not looking into that. But there's a crew of the Weyland-Yutani ship, and they all awaken from cryo sleep. And this is very like member berries, but it also really puts you in the world and says, like, this is a successor to Ridley Scott's vision of Alien and not so much Prometheus. I like that, even though you could kind of deduce that from Alien Romulus, which was very much like, hey, this is what the world is, not all that Prometheus stuff. We're kind of wiping the slate of that and going back to the aesthetic that is so iconic and familiar to fans of the franchise. That whole scene, like from them getting up, the way that they eat breakfast, complete with characters that look pretty much exactly like the characters in the original. They're like smoking and chewing dip, which is very 70s and not something that people really do nowadays. I quit smoking cigarettes, for those of you that care. I thought I'd throw that in there. Um, there's this, I can't remember what his name is, but there's this one like bald Asian synthetic that's kind of set up as a red herring, but it ends up being Morrow, who is definitely like embedded with the corporation. They're transporting these alien species. I thought there was 6. I only know of 5 of them, so maybe I'm missing something, but it's the xenomorph, the eye octopus, the nasty, disgusting blood bugs, the flower bud, and the flying bugs. So that's 5. I don't know which one I'm missing. Let me know if there's one, or maybe it is just 5. But the mission was to bring these species back, I think, so that they could be owned by Weyland-Yutani as some sort of weaponized force. I don't know exactly what they want to do with them, but might have something to do with the black goo. We'll see if they mess with the black goo again this time around. Something goes haywire on the ship. I'm not sure what happens. We don't see it, but we do get like cut scenes, like little intercut, spliced imagery from whatever happens when this catastrophic event aboard the ship happens, to where all of the specimens end up getting loose and just murking the entire crew. Kind of crazy stuff. But I'm going to mispronounce her name. I think it's Richa Morjani from Fargo has an appearance, a pretty short role in this series. I have to imagine that at some point in a future episode, we're going to go back to whatever happened aboard this ship. I would really like to see that. I mean, you can kind of deduce what it is, so if they don't decide to show it, that's fine, but I think there's a really interesting bottle episode in there to say, like, what actually happened? Hey, Leo, what's up? How you doing? I'm glad you got to stop by. It's been a minute. Still keeping up with the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni stuff? I know I am. There's an orange tabby in it, which is also a clear reference to Jonesy from the original Alien movie. However, this one does not fare as well as that alien did. So, or as that cat did, excuse me. So then we go to A Crash on Earth. Something happens. Like I said, we don't know exactly what it was, but Morrow ends up going and communicating with the AI on board the ship. Basically says everybody on the crew's dead, and then just at the last moment, as the xenomorph, just in all of its prosthetic practical effects glory, comes bursting through the freaking glass and then almost gets him. There's like drool on his face when the little bay seals up and he's like down there. He just wipes all that nasty saliva off his face. You know, one thing I noticed, this is a nitpick, but I think it's valid. That thing always stays so clean, that thing being the xenomorph. Like, it will gut and tear people to shreds, and it's still just this pristine black. I think it would be cool if they mixed blood in the saliva, or had like little specks of viscera on its face and body, where you can be like, oh, that thing just now wreaked chaos, right? Reaped chaos. So anyways, then we're introduced to this whole concept, and I probably shouldn't go by the play-by-play because I only watched it all once, but we get introduced to this little girl who's dying from cancer. Her name's Marcy, and she's part of the Prodigy Project, which is called The Lost Boys, allusions to Peter Pan, but also I always got to think about one of my favorite movies and the fantastic sexy sax player Tim Capello, which is Lost Boys. I think 1986's Lost Boys. Just such a great film. So basically they tell her, Timothy Olyphant plays a synthetic in this series, and I really like his choice here. His hair reminds me a little bit of Roy Batty, but he's having this conversation with her about a scorpion, and she's like, squash it. And he's like, well, what about if one of its friends came while I was trying to squash it and stung me? What if it's trying to protect the other scorpion like you're trying to protect me? Are you sure you want me to squash it? And she's like, no, I guess not. And then she goes into this room where they perform this procedure where they transfer her body, this terminally ill child, into a girl that will become to be known as Wendy from Peter Pan. Wendy's a cool character. I'm a fan of this whole group of Lost Boys, these hybrids that are children in adults' bodies. It just reminds me of being a millennial, you know what I mean? We're all a bunch of Disney adults, obviously. Um, when the child Marcy is about to undergo the process of having her consciousness transferred, she asks, "Will I dream?" which is a direct callback to the moment in Aliens when Newt asks Ripley if she's going to dream before going into hypersleep. A little bit more member berries there. Then Wendy discovers that her biological brother, a prodigy medic named Joe, is a part of the search and rescue team dispatched to the crash site. That whole crash sequence is incredible. You know they got a bit of a budget because like it looks so good and evocative of real life tragedies, in particular the planes taking out the Twin Towers and 9/11. But yeah, just what an impressive set piece. And they go in there and there's like just so much carnage that they're trying to, they keep saying search and rescue, but they ain't searching or rescuing nobody. But they're like, there's more medics coming. There's more medics coming. I suspect that they must be called there. Well, no, because they don't own the ship. So I don't know why they go directly into the ship. Because as a search and rescue operation, they are not rescuing a lot of people. Curtis says, I've always just imagined that xenomorph skin has a hydrophobic effect to it. Maybe so. Leo says, Blake Lively is over. Bath time. One thing I'll give AVP is they found a way to differentiate one alien from the others with that scar pattern on it. Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, the first episode ends with her reconnecting with her brother, I think. No, she doesn't get there yet, but she's on her way to find Joe. Joe DiMaggio is her brother's name, but he also goes by CJ. I don't know, but Joe DiMaggio, a reference to the baseball player from the 20th century, which apparently both their father was really into baseball, which kind of just ties her and her brother to their past and humanity, which I think is like an important little detail that gets put in there. They also used to watch Ice Age a lot. I think there'll be more to why only one team went in a little later. Yeah, I'm curious about that. That's an interesting little wrinkle in the way that it all played out. Like I said, there's a lot of Peter Pan nods, including the names of the hybrid children, which are Wendy, Curly, Slightly, Nibs, Smee, and Toodles, all taken directly from J.M. Barrie's story of Peter Pan. And the episode one is called Neverland. The closing credits features Ozzy Osbourne's The Mob Rules, or Black Sabbath, excuse me. It was about death and darkness, and is a fitting choice for a series where the xenomorph is about to unleash chaos on the unsuspecting populace. Episode number 2 is called Mr. October. The episode's title is a direct reference to Reggie Jackson, which again, baseball, triggers Joe's memories of his father. In this one, the episode picks up with Joe and his rescue team navigating the wreckage of the Maginot. I saw that Bath Time pronounced it a little bit ago, and I lost it in the sauce. But anyways, they go on board the ship and are soon attacked by the xenomorph, which is now loose within the city. Joe's separated from his team and barely escapes. Back at Prodigy, Boy Cavalier denies Weyland-Yutani's CEO Yutani's demand to retrieve their ship and the specimens on board, setting up a corporate rivalry. What a little prick he is. He kind of reminds me of Mark Zuckerberg. I don't know if that was intentional. I'm sure it's not a coincidence. But yeah, Cavalier reminds me a little bit of the Zooks. And he's such a little shit. But I also kind of like respect it. He's like, no, this is my turf. Your stuff crash here. This is causing me all sorts of problems. I'm keeping whatever's on that ship. He doesn't tell her that, but he's just like, no, have your lawyers call my lawyers. Do I think they will do something with the clock inside the crocodile from Peter Pan being a chest burster? Most likely, that's a really cool theory. I cannot say I've thought about that. That's interesting. Would be curious to see if they do something like that. Wendy and the other hybrids arrive at the crash site. Dude, she like breaks one of those cutters off of a paper cutter and like straps it to her back like a ninja. All of the hybrids are like super strong, super fast. They're more human than human. Better, faster, better, stronger, faster, stronger, better, faster, stronger. I gotta sing it. I don't know it. Daft Punk. Shout out to Daft Punk. But she's dead set on going on this mission, right? I mean, her brother, she's been like surveilling and watching him. There's this really cool scene where she's able to like hack into the mainframe of the artificial intelligence and communicate with them through this camera. But anyways, I'm kind of jumping around all over the place. I thought that was really cool. The xenomorph, though, it almost kills Joe. He jumps right at the last minute, falls, it runs, chases him to an elevator. Door closes right before the xenomorph gets to him, but now the xenomorph's loose. This is kind of where Joe reconnects with Wendy. They find each other. He doesn't know exactly who she is yet. It will be revealed a little bit later in the episode. But all of the Xeno stuff, it just looks really cool. It looks so awesome. I know that they are, integrating visual effects where they need to, but I also can tell, like, there's a person in a costume for a lot of that. Oh, the cyborg is basically Hook, isn't it? He's even got one. Yeah, I didn't think about that comparison. I mean, other than that, I think you'd have to convince me. But that's pretty compelling in itself. Like, the visual nod is certainly there. It could be a Hook. Hasn't specifically been one, but why not? I get what you mean there. That's really interesting. She tracks Joe through the debris. There's this awesome scene where Joe and one of the guys from the search and rescue mission, they knock on a door, and it's so crazy. It reminds me of like something out of Marie Antoinette, like the whole like let them eat cake thing, or like how rich debutantes of a certain era, they wore the powdered wigs and they had the makeup on and all this. There's like all these wealthy elite people having a party inside this high rise, and they're like, you need to go, there's something crazy out here. And he's just like, what are you talking about? Whoever owns this place, and if there's a problem, they'll let me know. And they're like, dude, you need to come with us. All of a sudden, Xenomorph appears, takes out his partner. It's this really cool scene because there's like a sculpture in the background, and it starts unfurling, and you can recognize the silhouette of the Xenomorph, and it attacks. It goes really easy on Joe. I gotta admit, it can rip 1,000 people to shreds in an instant inside this party. But for Joe, it's like taking its time. I don't know. It's fine. But it's main character, but plot armor. That's what they call it. But talk about eat the rich, right? The Xenomorph gets into this place and just tears everybody to shreds. And when Joe's walking through the carnage, it's this striking image of all of these, like, they look like French aristocrats, and they're just covered in crimson viscera. It's awesome. And then like the guy who answered the door is crawling across the floor, only he's been bisected, he's been cut in half. He's like dragging his entrails with him, and that's when the alien attacks Joe. And for whatever reason, why is it ripping people to shreds except for a fairly standard metaphor about the French Revolution? Yeah. Oh, you think that Morrow is going to get impregnated? The Lost Boys surely can't, and we have one developed human character on site, Joe. Wait, who do you think is going to get impregnated? Morrow? As a cyborg, he might. Yeah, maybe so. That's interesting. It doesn't seem like the Xenomorph has much interest with him for some reason. I don't know. I'm real curious to see how that plays out. Yeah, I really like that whole eating the rich thing, a pivotal scene where the Xenomorph attacks the lavish party of wealthy socialites dressed in 18th century clothing. Unstoppable force of nature that punishes the arrogance of the elite, much like the French Revolution imagery it evokes. Joe stumbles upon this baseball from the World Series, which triggers a memory of his dad. He then encounters Wendy. She soon reveals, well, she doesn't, but her friend reveals the true identity. And then he starts asking her questions, and she's able to answer them. And he realizes he thought he'd lost everybody, but here he is reunited with his sister, who he long thought was dead. But obviously that's going to lead to some, existential kind of things that he's trying to grapple with. Before they can fully reunite, the Xenomorph grabs Joe and drags him away, presumably to serve as a host for a facehugger. The episode ends with Wendy telling her hybrid companion to stay with the alien eggs they've discovered as she races off to save her brother. A lot of other stuff happened in this episode that I just didn't jot down, but there's the scene where the guy from season 3 of White Lotus and another guy get tied up by Morrow, and those insect bugs get loose. Oh, they're so nasty. It hooks onto him and sucks his blood, and like a tick, its abdomen just expands like a nasty ball sack balloon. It's so disgusting, dude. And then also the eye octopus thing gets into a cat, and it like explodes out of the cat, and the kids are able to catch it. And then there's this other almost like at one point Timothy Oliphant's character is like, is it flora? It presents as flora, but I suspect it might be fauna. They spent a lot of time on that thing in this episode. I'm pretty sure there's going to be something grotesque that happens with that character. Bath time, he says at one point it can smell fear to the random marine, so he's in control of his emotions, probably with cybernetics. Interesting. So you think if you're not afraid, it won't attack you? I'm trying to think, did it ever, and I'm sure there's got to be scenes where it killed Ash? It had to rip Ash up in the first Alien. I'm trying to think back on it now, like what the hell happened to Ash? Yeah, the alien got a hold of him and ripped him up. So I'm not sure. I think it's a great theory. I think it's an interesting theory for sure. So the replicant and synthetic dialogue, there's definitely some parallels going on with the Blade Runner universe. They prefer to be called artificial humans, which is a clear link to the dialogue in Blade Runner, where the difference between humans and replicants is a central theme. Synthetic itself is also a staple of the Alien franchise, but the dialogue here makes a connection to Blade Runner more explicit. Also, the way the Xenomorph moves in this series is kind of reminiscent of Alien 3, that it actually does run on all fours and like break into a stride, similar to the way that the more animalistic gait that the alien had in Alien 3. So, you know, this franchise has long been about corporate greed. And that's an interesting thing. Like, I was listening to a Screen Crush video earlier this morning, and he mentioned Aspen beer, which is a fake beer that was featured in the original Alien film. It was fake because Ridley Scott didn't want to get, product placement in a movie that was clearly like a statement about corporate greed. Well, when Disney acquires the IP and they go to release Romulus, they actually made Aspen beer and were selling it as like a promotional thing. It's interesting. And it kind of brings me to this theory about catharsis and social control, or catharsis as a social control. In the Aristotelian sense, catharsis originated from, Aristotle, who used the word in his work Poetics to describe the purging or purification of emotions like pity and fear, which are things that the audience experienced when they were watching Greek tragedies. Through a modern context, I think you can apply that more broadly and look at it on a societal level. Like, instead of just purging pity and fear, films can provide a vicarious release for feelings of like frustration, powerlessness, and the desire to rebel against unjust systems. By watching a character on screen dismantle an oppressive regime, overthrow a corrupt corporation, or simply break the rules, we get to experience the thrill of rebellion without actually ever acting on those impulses, which would lead to like a meaningful change, be it through revolution or anything that you could do, even going out and like, voting for the better interests of the people. And then there's the safety valve effect, which is the core of this argument. And by allowing audiences to participate in these fictional acts of rebellion, the system provides a safety valve for popular discontent. the anger and frustration that might otherwise like manifest and build up inside of us as a real political action are kind of slowly or strategically discharged in a harmless way. Like you can feel like a revolutionary for 2 hours in the movie theater and then go back to your life, perhaps feeling that the desire for change has been satisfied, because like there's another psychology test that basically says, like, if you're an author, don't go and tell people that you're writing a book or that you just finished a chapter, because it will release the same type of like chemical release as actually writing does. So you're tricking your brain into feeling like you're accomplishing things, despite the fact that you haven't done anything other than stated your intent. So sometimes I feel like we should hold on to that juice, hold on to those feelings if you want like meaningful change. And then like there's a paradox in corporate rebellion. Like a corporation whose primary function is to maintain the status quo of a capitalist system, i.e. Disney, produces this content that critiques the very system. And it's a really weird paradox, right? Like the catharsis as social control theory suggests that it's not a contradiction, but it's a sophisticated form of management. And like, I know that's a little bit conspiratorial, but like, it's interesting. They allow us these valves of release. Like if you think about Star Wars, like Andor, Rogue One, but all of Star Wars, overthrowing the Empire, the rebellion, it's all about revolution. If you look at the Empire, I mean, it can be a lot of things. Obviously, it was fascism, but it could be any number of things. Particularly in Andor, it does tie into corporations a lot more. You look at Blade Runner, there's all of these like kind of radical, revolutionary stories that are told by these brilliant filmmakers and storytellers, but then it's kind of bottled up and sold to us through these very corporate packages. And it's hard to swallow a series that's main theme is to kind of like critique corporations and these 5 corporations when you realize that like Disney would be one of those 5 corporations. It's kind of wild. Oh yeah, bath time. There was a very telling line about this in the second episode. It was something about living forever, but referring to them as consumers. Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of sparked something in Cavalier, right? Like, oh yeah, wait, yeah, they can consume forever. That's great for corporations, and we all, and myself included, we just consume and consume and consume, and it's great for them. And if our strongest act of rebellion is to engage with content that's given to us by these corporations, I feel like it's just a little icky. Disney is selling the revolution. They're a multi-billion-dollar company that profits from selling narratives of rebellion. I mean, think about the Dumbo movie. It's crazy. It markets branded merchandise, theme park experiences, and a constant stream of new content that revolves around characters fighting against oppressive empires, tyrannical corporations, or powerful corrupt systems. The act of buying a lightsaber toy or even a xenomorph t-shirt is a participation in consumerist culture. And these franchises implicitly or explicitly critique. The system is not just allowing minor transgressions, it's commercializing them, right? So not only is it encouraging us to participate in these fake acts of rebellion, but it has commodified them, marketed them, and then sold us to them. So when we buy like the Che Guevara shirt or whatever, like it's consumerism masked as activism. And that's a weird thing. By bringing these franchises into the fold, Disney can be seen as domesticating their messages. The original Alien film was a visceral critique of corporate greed and dehumanization of workers. With Disney's ownership, the production of new shows like Alien Earth can potentially soften these sharp edges. While this new series may still show the brutality of Weyland-Yutani, it's now a part of a larger corporate machine that benefits from the very system that it's shown to be critiquing. The rebellion becomes a spectacle, an entertaining product to be consumed rather than a genuine call to action. Oh, interesting, bath time. I don't know what's the point of having 3 versions of artificial human life, but not having any actual humans in danger. I want to touch on that in a second, but first I want to say that like even theme parks are like an interactive form of this rebellion through the lens of consumerism. Like you can, I don't know if they still do it, but at Hollywood studios you can like buy this upgrade package where you get to dress like a Jedi and help overturn the Empire while you're there, but it's like $1,000 additional ticket costs or whatever. It's just a really interesting thing. So then you're going and you're simulated overthrowing these regimes, and you're shown to like be an active participant in it, and that feels good. And at the same time, it's an hollow exercise that's cynical because it is only empowering these very corporations that these series are aiming to kind of critique. It's a weird thing, and I feel like Disney gets away from it with it really well. Yeah, Americans are finally discovering the class system via theme parks. Yeah, it's all meticulously designed and controlled by the corporations. It gives you a safe, sanctioned outlet for your rebellious impulses without any of the actual risks that go along with that. But now I kind of want to touch on Bath Time's idea about, what you mentioned in the comment about artificial human life versus actual humans in danger. When I look at Wendy, I see a human. And obviously there's a lot to be said about like the uncanny valley, right? The way that we will anthropomorphize. I know I always say that word wrong. Anything. You look at the frog and Princess and the Frog, or you look at the lions and the Lion King, and then you go out and you look in the wild and you see a lion and you think Simba, and we have this really good way of humanizing everything to the point that, and I think it's a good exercise, that we should feel empathy for all life. But when I look at Wendy, I do see a human. And there's this kind of existential question that's always proposed about, like, what is a soul? Does a human being possess a soul where a synthetic, or in this case, hybrid, doesn't? And I mean, Black Mirror has explored these kind of themes, but to me, in my best estimation, your soul is an amalgam of your programming, right? It's nature versus nurture. It's like your genetics plus your lived experiences. And when Roy Batty talks about Tears in the Rain, God, oh man, that just hits. When he talks about Tears in the Rain, it is all kind of posing that question, like, what are human beings if not our thoughts and our memories? And if you take those things and you put them on a hard drive and then you put them into a synthetic, I feel the soul kind of does transfer, because the humanity is those. However, I just now said in my own words, it's like genetics plus your lived experience. And in the show, they, with a fine point, talk about how these hybrids don't create hormones, so they are not experiencing emotions in the same way that we are. However, there's something special about Wendy. There's something special about Wendy. I feel like all of them have their humanity, but she, I feel like, is almost like Neo in the Matrix. Like, she's able to take it one step past that, and I don't know if it's because they allowed her the specific connection with her brother. I don't know exactly what it is. I'd have to think a little bit about that. Bath Time says Wendy's arc can only go one of two ways: RoboCop and accepting she's still human, or losing her humanity, which is more interesting as it involves sacrificing her brother, in my opinion. That is interesting, and it's also cynical. And one thing that I can be wishy-washy on about Alien post-Disney acquisition is it seems a little more sentimental, right? There's some moments in, and I really like Alien Earth, but there's some moments in it that I feel are a little saccharine and a little more sentimental than what Ridley Scott would have given us in his vision of the story. And I'm not saying it's bad, because it's very like classical storytelling. I think it might allow for an emotional investment in the story, but I hope it doesn't come at the sacrifice of an intellectual investment of the story. And I agree with you that it would be more interesting to see her lose her humanity, though I don't know that that's the direction that this series is going. However, we don't know what kind of control Prodigy actually has over her. I think it's yet to be revealed what they can actually, what that body do. You know what I mean? Like they could hijack her for all we know and just override whatever humanity she has in favor of being like a machine. So I find all that fascinating, though, and I heard somebody basically say that they don't look at the hybrids as humans, that they are, approximations of humans, which in its most literal context, that's absolutely accurate. They're not biologically, physiologically human, but I think of soul and consciousness as being this kind of interconnected thing, and like ultimately what I feel like what we are is our history. However, that does omit the thing of like stress responses. Like that's a big aspect of who we are as well. Like if you're put into a situation where you're afraid, how are you going to react to that? If you were put into a situation that makes you angry, how are you going to react to that? And that is very physiological. That is cortisol, the release of different hormones and chemicals within our own biology that make us react certain ways, which also dictates who we are. So maybe part of my argument is already undermined by that simple fact. But when I look at Wendy and when I look at the Lost Boys, I do see humans, and maybe that's naive of me, and maybe we will grow to see them as more machine than human in the future. But I think it's really, really interesting stuff. We agree that Boy Wonder will die. Wendy most likely will to do that. Doesn't make her more or less human to kill him. He's got to die. Whether or not she'll be the one to kill him, that does seem the most poetic. The creation killing the creator. It's very Frankenstein's monster. It's very classic literature. I could definitely see that happening. It's interesting stuff. I really appreciate you being a part of this conversation. If you're watching this after it was uploaded, thank you very much for being here. I can't wait to see what's next for the series. I don't know if I'm going to do like an episode to episode thing. I'll definitely talk about it when it's over. But yeah, I think it's really freaking good. If I was going to try to quantify a score based on what I've seen on a scale of 5, I'm giving it a 4.5. Like I think it's definitely worth a watch. I think there's a lot more interesting stuff in store. You have a feeling the bald British man might kill him. I can see that as well. I'm curious to learn more about that character, and I recognize the actor, but I could not put my finger on what from. So if you know, definitely let me know what that is. But yeah, what did you think about Alien Earth? Are you excited to see more from this series? What are your thoughts on the commercialization of revolutionary acts? What are your thoughts on what it means to be human? I'd love to hear all of that stuff in the comment section. You'd say apart from the opacity nonsense, the first episode was a solid 7, but the second a 4 out of 10. Oh, we are far apart, and I respect it. I think having listened to you discuss your thoughts on it, a lot of it makes a lot of sense to me. I understand the critique. It seems like you're coming at it from a thoughtful perspective. What I hate is when people are just like, oh, it was balls, it sucks ass. That to me is not a meaningful conversation, though it's fair. I mean, if that's the surface level that you're engaging with media, that's okay. Not everybody wants to delve into the deeper themes and the subtext and all of that kind of stuff. So I know we all experience movies and television differently. I think it's all fair. I just kind of want to use my platform to share my love of media with those of you that are interested in hearing about it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to click the like button, subscribe right here at the Jeremy Branch YouTube channel if you want to stay up with all sorts of content. I've been working on top 25 blank horror movies released in the 21st century, so I have a couple of those available. I think there's 3 of them now. The last one, I kind of changed the format a little bit. Please go over and check that out. It took a lot of time to make it. If you haven't checked out Holden Hardman's YouTube channel, he is here on YouTube. Just look for Holden and Jen Hardman on YouTube. I am doing movie reviews over there as well. Stop by, click a like on those, make sure you're subscribed, and thank you all very much for stopping by. Tyler, before we go, worth watching if you've never seen the movies. Two things. First of all, I think so. I think it works on its own terms. I do think it will be enriched by having seen the movies. Second thing, watch the movies, man, especially the first one. I think if you've seen the first one, maybe watch Alien, Alien Romulus, and Alien Earth. And I think that you'd be good to go. Again, thank you all so much for being here. Until next time, be terrible. Bye.